Good evening, friends, and welcome to a late night edition. It's not really that late, Ed, of
No.
Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. It's an early night. It's 8 o'clock in the East Coast. We want to just say thank you to each and every one of you for joining us tonight. This is not our typical Forensic Friday. We're going to go live here with you tonight to talk about the Titanic tourist submersible, the Titan, which all of us here, unless you're living under a rock, if you haven't heard about this, we're going to talk about it tonight. Father's Day 2023, it went down to go to see the Titanic, which should be about a two-hour plus descend down to the wreckage, some 12,500 feet down at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And Ed Wallace and I are going to talk with you guys about it tonight. We're going to get into it. We're going to take your questions. So we want to say thank you to you, the Patreon supporters, the channel members, all the folks who positively engage on all of these live streams that we do. We give thanks and praise to you guys, the moderators, the replay viewers. Ed, how's it going? Are you in an undisclosed location, or can you disclose approximately where you're at?
I think everybody knows where I'm at. I'm at my Jersey Shore house.
Nice. Ed's enjoying a little R&R with the family, and we love to see and hear that. But he's kind enough to come live with us tonight to talk about this. Ed.
Hello?
Size of a minivan, just by all accounts imploded in a catastrophic failure. I just wanted to open up with your thoughts because, I know that we were talking in, behind the scenes a little bit, and you said, this is not kind of your area, but about, what it takes to do this. And this vessel, by all accounts, didn't seem like it had the proper certifications and so forth. So I wanted to just get your thoughts on it, Ed.
All right. Well, first, my thoughts and prayers to the victims and the victims' families. Second, folks, there are, when I was going through architecture school, there are several types of architects, right? And now that is expanded. Originally there was just a few different types. One of those types is called naval architecture. And the other are counterpart in engineers. They're called marine engineers. And naval architects and marine engineers are the ones tasked with designing and building watercraft, surface vessels, and submarines and submersibles and things of that nature. Now, the physics of this and the standard engineering is that it's a standard. And in my personal opinion, we need strict government oversight on the production and manufacture of these types of vehicles, especially if they're going to be hauling people and taking them underwater to depths of this magnitude, okay, so that we know that it's safe to operate and things like this can't happen, okay? The Department of Transportation should be all over this, right? I mean, they should have an NTSB, on the National Transportation Safety Board, investigation on this accident, okay? As I said, the engineering on this is pretty universal. Everybody knows the geometric shapes, right? Your triangles, your rectangles, your squares, and your circles, ellipses, things like that. But to withstand these types of pressures, whether you're going into space or whether you're going into the deeps of the ocean, the circle is the strongest geometric shape that could be used, okay? I don't understand this construction. It seems so ad hoc. It doesn't appear, I don't know if they consulted naval architects or marine engineers when they were constructing this thing. It doesn't look like they did. But I don't know who certified it. I understand there might have been a license, but I don't understand who certified it, to what depths that this could go. I know they use two different types of materials. They use titanium, and then they also used I'm having a brain fart here. Carbon fiber. Now, I just don't understand the carbon fiber aspects of this to withstand those types of pressures as they're going down, the pressures are increasing tremendously,
Right.
and it's squeezing on the hull of this vessel. And that's why the circle is so much stronger than the other types, because it disperses that pressure evenly around the circumference of the circle. I remember, seeing a video about naval architecture, and I watched this engineer, marine engineer. He did a study and did a show where he was in a World War II style diesel submarine, battery-powered diesel submarine, right? And he ran a string across the hull supports, and he told his fellow engineers, "Now I want you to keep an eye on the string." And he goes, "As we go deeper into the ocean, the pressures are going to the pressures are going to increase exponentially, and you're going to watch how right now this string is taut, is straight across, but over time this string is going to sag in the center as we go down, because the hull is being pushed in." Now, this is before all the other engineerings and double hulls and other structures and other alloy metals came into play to make these vessels much safer. And even in our own naval fleet, we had numerous naval disasters of submarines sinking and killing all souls on board.
Right.
So, this is to me a very dangerous operation to undertake if you don't know what you're doing.
And at Ocean Gate, by my studies of them, it seems like they're, flying by the seat of their pants, so to speak, and they're defying odds and they're taking risks. And there was all kinds of, waivers that had to be signed, and they talked about death numerous times within the paragraphs of these waivers. But as to the testimony of the pressure, one scientist described it as the Empire State Building being the weight of the Empire State Building crushed in on all sides, top, sides, bottom. And at 12,500 feet, that's what they're looking at. And they didn't even make it down to that. There was also reports, Ed, that the actual one window looking forward was only rated for 4,000 feet. And to me, that's a huge red flag. If in fact that's true, why in God's name would they push they would go against the odds here, so to speak? And this is the 5th mission. We heard from people who are on the 3rd mission, people who are on several other missions where they lost crews for 2 hours at a time. And that, that's something that's troubling that they never made corrections on. And if you look at this vessel in its, in its state before obviously what happened here, you look at it and you just scratch your head, and right down to the controller, which, as you described, a PlayStation type device from Logitech, and they're using that to steer this vessel. Would you get into this thing, Ed?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. I would look at it and laugh and walk away. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If that seems disrespectful, but honestly, with my background and everything, I would just walk away from this. Okay. I wouldn't even think about it. First of all, there's no seating, right? There's no redundancies in safety systems. Okay. It is a cylinder of titanium, and then it's attached to carbon fiber with bolts and glue. And, again, anybody who knows anything about trying to attach 2 different types of materials knows how dangerous this could be. Or even in simplistic terms, like you take like a bathroom. Let's just take a bathroom, and you attach a shower tub. Okay. You take a shower tub that's made of porcelain, maybe, or fiberglass, and then you attach a metal glass enclosure on top of the fiberglass shower tub. Okay. And if you don't attach this thing correctly, when you turn on the hot water, and if you don't have the right sealants, and when you turn on the hot water, the metal components are going to expand at different ratios than the fiberglass components because they're two different types of materials,
Right.
and they have different expansion and contraction rates. Okay. Right. And that's why you need to put all this silicone around the joints to try to maintain its keeping the water inside of the shower and not seeping out underneath the shower enclosure.
Right.
I mean, that's just a simplistic, example of what I'm talking about.
It's a good example. And I think the clientele here are million and billionaires, and they are looking for, fulfilling a life, maybe a lifelong dream, or just doing something that the normal common folk couldn't afford. I know I wouldn't ever spend. I wouldn't have done it if it was offered to me for free at the looks of this thing. And we're going to take a look at it now. And B, I'm kind of claustrophobic. So being enclosed in something that looked like a minivan. And when we look at this, Ed, I've been in minivans. I've owned minivans. They're more spacious than what this was. You got to sit down with your back hunched. There was people that looked like they were stretched out across each other with their legs across each other. I mean,
there was no double hull construction. There was no, I mean, if you looked inside that thing, right, you see there's videos of it. You can see the inside of it, right? And it's just a cylinder, okay? Right. It's a cylinder at some point. But inside of the cylinder, there's no additional support inside the cylinder. Like maybe you could have put some steel in there, or again, you could have stayed. I would have stayed with the same material. If I'm using titanium for the cylinder hull, then I'll use titanium supports, ridges, or inside of the cylinder to add additional support to the cylinder from being crushed. And there's no double hull construction or even triple hull construction. Where's the ballast being held? Where's the emergency redundancy, safety equipment? Where's any of this?
And you couldn't even get out if there was an emergency and you went topside, because there was all of those points that had to be unscrewed to get you out. So it was just in my eyes, it was a death trap, but it's easy for me to say it because, we're Monday morning quarterbacking it a little bit. But if you look at this thing, it seemed ridiculous. But
it was bound to happen.
Right. It was an accident waiting to happen. And this catastrophic event that took place, which we're not 100% sure what happened, exactly where the break or the breach was, but it obviously it had to have been in one of those.
Once something like this happens at those depths, it's like this, and every aspect of it goes at the same time. It's not like it's going to be like a slow domino progression. It just goes poof, and it's done. Disintegrated.
The sad part, Ed, about this, and we talked briefly, is the billionaire from Pakistan. I believe the last name was Dawood, and one of the most wealthy families in Pakistan. His son agreed to go for Father's Day, a 19-year-old young man. He was scared and he didn't want to go. And by these accounts from his aunt, where she was interviewed on one of the news stations, she said that he was apprehensive about going, but he wanted to make his dad happy and go for Father's Day. And that's like Ed's extra sadness to this thing. I mean, 5 souls lost, including the CEO, Stockton Rush, who's made this trip many a times. But it's just, and Norma Guerrera is asking a question that a lot of people are asking: will they ever find the bodies? And I would have to say no. Ed?
There are no bodies left.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that. It's difficult to hear. Just think about what happened when the World Trade Center collapsed. Okay. And this is far more dramatic than what happened at the World Trade Center was a structural failure insofar as the open web steel joists that were holding the floor systems of precast concrete that were hoisted in place and then welded to the interior column core of the elevators and the exterior column cores. Once the open web steel joists warped in the fire and pulled out of their pins, then those floor systems started to pancake.
Yeah.
And then it was more like a domino effect. Bing. And once that first floor fell on the next floor, that floor couldn't hold it. And then it just kept going. And then the exterior walls fell out like the petals of a flower opening up. Okay. And then all the people that were in there, and trigger alert, folks, trigger alert, if you can't handle this, I'm sorry. But all the people in there were basically, I don't want to use the words that I could use because I know it's too graphic. But anyhow, they were disintegrated. And when we did find body parts, you can tell by looking at the crushing and the tearing of the bones and the tiny pieces of bones that we found, how this occurred to their bodies. But in this case, when something like this happens, and it's going to happen so fast, okay, all right, you guys know how nuclear weapons explode, right? There are two types, right? You have your fission and fusion, right? All right, so one separates and one compacts. Now, the one that compacts, how they do that is they have these charges of explosives like a soccer ball around the radioactive material, and they will detonate all of those explosives at the same time with all of those forces then pushing in on the radioactive material. So think of that to what's happening with this submarine when the pressure of all that water and the depths of that water is going to be pushing in all at one time.
So what you're saying is it's like a nuclear explosion.
I'm not saying that per se, but the energy and the pressures that are, to give an analogy, right, and so there's nothing left.
Yeah, it's so sad. We're gonna play a quick. This is like 4 minutes. This was the Coast Guard giving basically giving the word once they were everything was confirmed, and they went in with their ROVs, and the Coast Guard, the Navy, Canadian authorities. There was many authorities that were involved in this search, and this is basically the presser, and we'll be right back with you guys.
This morning, an ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command, I offer my deepest condolences to the families. I can only imagine what this has been like for them, and I hope that this discovery provides some solace during this difficult time. Additionally, we've been in close contact with the British and French consuls general to ensure that they are fully apprised and that their concerns are being addressed. The outpouring of support in this highly complex search operation has been robust and immensely appreciated. We are grateful for the rapid mobilization of experts on the undersea search and rescue, and we thank all of the agencies and personnel for their role in the response. We're also incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that's been provided. The ROVs will remain on scene and continue to gather information. Again, our most heartfelt condolences go out to the loved ones of the crew. We'll now take questions.
Thank you, Admiral. So essentially, we found 5 different major pieces of debris that told us that it was the remains of the Titan. The initial thing we found was the nose cone, which was outside of the pressure hull. We then found a large debris field. Within that large debris field, we found the front end bell of the pressure hull. That was the first indication that there was a catastrophic event. Shortly thereafter, we found a second smaller debris field. Within that debris field, we found the other end of the pressure hull, the aft end bell, which was basically comprised of the totality of that pressure vessel.
So Ed, I have a couple of questions for you. 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic is where they're claiming that obviously they found the debris field and some of the debris. Some people in the chat and some people would think, well, does this mean that they made it all the way down there? I know that you can answer that. I can too, but I wanted to go to you on that.
No, I don't think that's the case at all. In fact, it's probably, if you time the descent and then you calculate the descent with the time that they lost communications, and then you couple that with what the Navy found with their listening devices on Sunday, I think we know exactly what time it occurred, and it can be calculated to what depth they were at when this all occurred. And
another thing too that's a sticking point with a lot of people is we heard reports that on Sunday, a short time after comms were lost between the Titan and the mothership above, our U.S. Navy, which has counter surveillance listening devices for enemy
submarines,
right?
Yeah.
Ed, I know you're well versed on this. People are saying, well, why this week-long drawn out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, Thursday coming out with this presser? Why not just say we heard what we believe to be an implosion, and this vessel, met its demise? They had to confirm that they found. They couldn't just say based on what we heard. I mean, Ed, can you talk on that?
Well, first of all, the systems that were used by the Navy are classified. Okay, so the only people that should have known it are the Coast Guard and the people in the search group. And second of all, there takes a bunch of triangulation calculations have to be performed to get a range of the area that could occur. Now, once you have the catastrophic failure, this is not a static event. This is a dynamic event. So a lot of things are in motion here. So okay, you have the catastrophic failure, and it's going to be at a certain depth and a certain location in the water. Well, once that static event, once that dynamic event of the implosion occurs, then the debris field is going to be at the whim of the currents and gravity, because it's going to sink and it's going to move from its original location where the catastrophic event occurred and fall out as it may, based upon the direction and speed of the tides. So, you can't say, okay, it happened here. And because if you would have went where they finally figured out, plus or minus whatever GPS locations and feet and depth and so forth, it moved from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it didn't stay stationary there and just drop straight down to the bottom of the ocean.
Right, absolutely. And some people just caught up on that. We know that Again, they lost comms an hour and 40 minutes into this, or somewhere around that time. So they weren't actually down at that the depth that they needed to be. I want to play a small little piece from Fox 13. This is going to go over some of the intricate, inside the search. So they talk about the wreckage, and they cover a little bit here. I think this would be interesting for you guys to see this.
Four-day mystery comes to a tragic end. Everyone on board the Titan submersible is assumed dead. The Coast Guard announcing that the vessel likely imploded on its way down to view the wreckage of the Titanic. The sub was operated by Everett-based company OceanGate. And now the safety and design of the experimental sub is being called into question.
The CEO of OceanGate talked about the quality of the sub with Fox 13 back in 2020, telling us back then that the early design, quote, didn't have the safety to carry passengers. Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling is taking a closer look into those comments and why it may offer clues about what may have happened to the submersible. Jennifer.
In hindsight, some of those statements that he made during that interview are chilling. The CEO suggested that early in the design process, durability was an issue.
The first hull had enough to go a couple of times, but didn't have the safety we needed to take people in.
OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush said safety was an early concern when Fox 13 interviewed him a couple years ago about the Titan.
We actually have contracted with Boeing for some of the early design work on
This is what I was talking to you about, Ed, where he talks about he partners up with Boeing. And when Boeing was asked after this event happened, if that in fact was true, they said no. So I don't know what's going on here, but I'm sure that, like you said, there should be an investigation. There should be, this should be looked into. That's definite. And future missions like this should not happen without, like you said, getting certifications and having government oversight. So
with Boeing for some of the early design work on Titan, our 4,000 meter, 14,000 foot capable sub.
After talking with numerous defense contractors, Rush said they sidetracked with a small California company.
He had some experience in using a less expensive carbon fiber manufacturing technology. We made our last hull with that.
Rush told us he took the early sub to 4,000 meters alone before bringing others.
Took 4 people down to 3,700 meters. And then as can happen with composites, it was clear that the hull was starting to degrade.
By 2020, he said quality improved.
It was not of the quality we needed. And now we have gone and worked with NASA and some local companies, Electro Impact, Janicki up north, to use aerospace grade manufacturing processes. And so very confident that the new hull, the new carbon fiber piece, we're going to mate it to our existing titanium pieces. And then we'll have a hull that has the durability to go back year after year.
I reached out to those Rush cited as working with OceanGate. Boeing said it was, quote, not a partner on the Titan and did not design or build it. Meantime, NASA said its, quote, Marshall Space Flight Center had a Space Act agreement with OceanGate and consulted on materials and manufacturing processes for the submersible. NASA did not conduct testing and manufacturing via its workforce or facilities, which were done elsewhere. Electro Impact said, we extend our deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of the individuals who tragically lost their lives on the Titan. All of this has many asking, was there some kind of a design flaw that ultimately led to the implosion of the submersible?
If you look at, say, Alvin or James Cameron's sub or Victor Vescovo, who just went to the Mariana Trench, that was those are purpose-built vehicles of just get me down there.
Director James Cameron has done multiple dives to the Titanic. He said many in the community were concerned about the Titan being too experimental.
If that's your sole goal, is to achieve the greatest depth, then you go with the Sphere. And everyone tends to go with known materials like titanium. What we needed was something that had the space to really get an interaction and a different experience for people. And that ends up being a cylinder.
In the past, Rush has also cited working with UW. We reached out to the university's Applied Physics Lab, and they tell us that they provided some engineering services between 2013 and 2020, helping with shallow diving and the creation of a different steel-hulled submersible called Cyclops. It went on to say, quote, the university's and laboratories engineering partnership with OceanGate ended with completion of the shallow water vessel Cyclops, which served as a test platform for OceanGate since 2015. Because APL UW expertise involved only shallow water implementation, the laboratory was not involved in the design, engineering, or testing of the Titan submersible used in the RMS Titanic expedition. We also reached out to Janaki, another company that Rush said had helped OceanGate work on the Titan, and we're waiting to hear back.
So there you have it, Ed. I know you're shaking your head, and I saw you shaking your head as we were playing that. I mean, this is mirroring all your thoughts right up front when we first went live.
This was totally avoidable.
Yeah.
And we need more government regulation and oversight of stuff like this. Okay. I get the idea. It's a cool idea. Hey, let's go down and look at the Titanic before it's totally disintegrated. But if you're going to do something like that, then you have to make every attempt to dot your I's, cross your T's, and redundancy. Let me tell you this too about redundancies. With the advent of computers, and I'm going to go back to my architecture world. With the advent of computers and engineering software and so forth, our newer buildings, our newer high-rise buildings, were built to exacting to the codes. Whatever the standard was, they built right up to it, and that was it. At many times, for instance, the World Trade Center, it was built to code, but there were no redundancies. There were only two sets of supporting columns: the interior square that housed the elevator core, and the exterior square that has the exterior columns. Okay, there was nothing in between, no redundancy. Take that and oppose it to the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building, which was before computers and software and that, they built beyond code. Okay, and there were multiple redundancies in the steel and the structure, to the point that when a B-25 Mitchell bomber flew into it, all right, the building didn't collapse. Right. Okay, now you can't compare a B-25 to a modern jetliner flying at close to Mach when it impacted the World Trade Center. But even if there were no fires and no explosion from the impact of the plane into the World Trade Center, the damage it did to the exterior columns on two facades over time, just by itself, the gravity would have taken those buildings down, because now the load from the top of the building to the damaged section cannot be carried all the way down to the foundation. It is missing because of those sections of the exterior columns were gone.
Right.
Okay. Now damage a few of the interior columns, which were done as well. And, you have the catastrophic failure of the World Trade Center.
Yeah. And I think it comes into play here because on the various different missions, the fuselage, if you will, the main, the hull is now subject to those pressures each time it goes down, and It's made it down there. It's documented. We're going to go over to the website and the YouTube channel of OceanGate, and we're going to take a look at some of their stuff that they've posted. But now the director of the movie Titanic is speaking all over the place. James Cameron and Bob Ballard, they are saying that they knew it was a catastrophic event immediately after, as soon as this was reported, but they held back out of respect for the families. And they felt there was some serious safety issues within this company. And I have notes here that in 2018, he was fired. David Lockridge put a lawsuit for subpar safety standards. Parts of the windows were not certified. Windows were only, this is according to David Lockridge, Windows were only certified for 4,000 feet, and various other things. But once he brought this up to the CEO, he was fired. So interesting stuff. I want to get to this and play so that everyone can see quickly, and then we could come back to some of the questions. This is an interview with the Titanic movie folks, and listen, he's made many trips down there to the Titanic in similar vessels. So let's listen to what he has to say.
Of Newfoundland. A Ballard, an oceanographer and Navy officer, developed his own remotely operated underwater vehicle and turned to the Navy to fund his project. After an 8-day search, Ballard became the first person to set eyes on the Titanic. April 14th, 1912 is when it crashed. Another person closely familiar with the Titanic is director James Cameron, along with his Oscar-winning movie, of course. He's actually made 33 dives to the wreckage site itself. James and Robert, thank you both so much for joining us. We understand this is not only a difficult day because for the industry, the exploring industry, but also for both of you personally, because you knew some of the explorers on board the Submersible. And I know first off, we're all thinking of their families. Bob, let's start with you. What first crossed your mind when you heard the news today? I understand you both have a deeper understanding of this than most. So what was your first thought today?
Well, when it happened, both Jim and I were at sea on that Sunday, and Jim called me and told me about it, and we both instantly knew that it was gone. Once the data we heard that they were experiencing trouble, they were on their descent, and then when the tracking system went out and everything went out, the only way you could explain it was a catastrophic implosion. And we all have not talked to anybody, because we knew today would be the day when it would be confirmed. Right, Jim?
Yeah, we didn't. I don't think we wanted to come forward. I got, as you did, Bob, approached by many outlets for comment, and it just seemed like speculation, even though we felt we knew what the outcome was going to be, and it was certainly zero surprise to me today. I was even able to visualize the wreck site in my mind over the last few days, and you know, as described, I think it's exactly what we expected. But, you know, I can't imagine what these poor families have been through over the last 4 days, being given false hope here, banging noises, da-da-da, this and that. And, you know, it must have been just, you know, horrible for them. And I feel so bad for them. But I also felt that, as we agreed, Bob, that it would be insensitive to come forward with a dissenting voice to the story that was in motion at the time. I just wish we could have gotten an ROV to the site much earlier and gotten eyes on, which took 4 days. And, you know, this thing just seemed like a prolonged nightmare.
You two
well, the French knew exactly where to go. As soon as they arrived, they put their vehicle in and they dove to the spot of the last contact and dropped down, and there was the wreckage.
As I said, you two are so intimately familiar with this site and what it takes to get there. James, I know you were talking today. You were struck by the similarity of what happened with the Titanic disaster to, you know, unfortunately, what has happened here with warnings going out beforehand. Talk to me a little bit about the irony.
Well, it is. Look, people are fascinated by Titanic. They've been fascinated by that story since it sank. And yes, there's the whole, you know, all the millionaires that died and all that sort of thing. But to me, the big irony is that the Titanic sank because of bad seamanship. The captain was warned, and he took a decision to go full speed into a known ice field that he had Marconigram, you know, telegrams in his pocket, warning about the ice ahead. And on a moonless night where they couldn't see anything, they just steamed full speed ahead. And I kind of feel that that's what happened here. I feel that this was such a preventable tragedy. We've never had a tragedy like this in the entire history of deep submergence, deep diving. You have these, you know, highly certified systems like Alvin at Woods Hole, which Bob is very familiar with. Even the Russian submersibles that I dove with, every 5 years they had to be reclassified and recertified, and so on. And you have all these legitimate.
Ed, as much as people are saying in the chat, "Oh, these are, you know, movie guys," these guys know their shit. They know what they're talking about when it comes to this.
I mean, look how many dives James Cameron has done on the Titanic. Okay, and he did several of them by himself.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, they know what they're talking about.
And I'm watching. I have the advantage of seeing you behind the scenes here. You're agreeing and shaking your head when he's talking about
Absolutely.
the certifications, and it just makes sense.
Well,
So,
that's what I say. We have to have a National Transportation Safety Board investigation on this vessel and what happened here, because it was a transportation vehicle that was hauling passengers for a fee.
for hire.
Okay. So this is a commercial vehicle. This is a commercial vehicle, and the owners were making money off of this.
$2 million.
Right. So, I mean, planes, buses, trains, they all get this scrutiny. This vehicle needs to have the same.
Deep diving operations around the world, and even most of the tourist operations around the world use certification from, let's say, ABS, the American Bureau of Shipping. And this particular outfit didn't do that. I had deep concerns about the technology that they were using, composite fiber wound filament hull, which I don't believe has any place in deep submergence. And I know a thing or two about the engineering that goes into subs. I designed and built my own sub and went, at one point 10 years ago, went 3 times deeper than Titanic at the Challenger Deep. So it's all just engineering, and these are understood and known problems. The last thing somebody should be thinking about when they get into a sub to pay to go deep as a tourist or as a like a lay explorer, they shouldn't have to worry about the sub that they're in. This is just engineering, and it's the 21st century. If you think about when we first started diving deep back in the 60s, the time between then and now is greater than the time between Orville Wright and Wilbur Wright at Kitty Hawk and the flight of the first 747. That's the amount of time that we've had to improve our understanding of materials science and safety protocols and so on. There is no excuse for what happened here, and I find it appalling and tragic.
Just lastly, for both of you, I know you both knew Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate. Bob, you've known him for 30 or so years. So if you both could just talk to me a little bit about who he was, what his dream was, and what needs to happen now that this has happened.
Well, he was a dreamer. I met him. He was very young when I first met him, and he told me about his dream to develop a technology to dive on the Titanic. But that was about it. I wasn't that involved at all. Jim really understands the engineering science on that particular submarine. And like Jim said, every time I dove in, I've dove in 9 different deep submersibles, and I've never worried about the integrity of the hull.
I thought that was an interesting piece, Ed, because they hit on a lot of valid points and a lot of things that you brought up. They also brought up here. And of course, just as a disclaimer to everybody, I didn't have time to show Ed the things that I was going to play here. So that's how on point you were in regards to this. These guys, again, I would classify these guys as experts, because making 33 dives down to the Titanic, and some of them, like you said, solo in these small vessels, they know their shit. So
yeah, I had never seen those before. I didn't, before I came on the show, I hadn't seen them, and I hadn't heard what they said. But like I said, there are standards in engineering, and this is simple, all right. And apparently these standards were ignored.
Yeah. I got your full screen because I'm searching for something. I want to show the inside of this, what I showed you before we went live. This is the one thing I did show, Ed. So let me set this up for you guys. This is Ed. You're looking at the chat, shaking your head. Yeah, there's a lot of comments. Listen, we appreciate all the comments, and we respect everybody's opinion. Again, everyone's going to have opinions on this, but I feel strongly that money shouldn't be able to buy you a ticket to your death. Like he said here, the onus of this vessel being sound was on the provider, and the CEO, who's no longer with us, Stockton Rush, and his entire team were responsible for safety and upgrades. I mean, $2 million per dive down. That's a lot of money. $500,000 for each pair of people. So, for me, they were making the money, and there was no reason why they should have skimped on anything.
Hey, don't look at Elon Musk, look at Jeff Bezos, right, and their space programs, right? And civilians are going up there, okay? You don't think they're looking at this and saying, oh, this could happen to us too, and that's why they dot their I's and cross their T's rather, and they're doing all their testing possible and getting all their certifications and making sure their equipment is properly engineered. And even when they're properly engineered, mistakes still happen. Look at the space shuttle, okay? Look at the several space shuttle disasters, right? Okay, it could happen. But in this case, you got a commercial venture taking, charging millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever the case may be to take millionaires or anybody who can afford this down there. Okay, where's your redundancies? Where's your backup? Where's your safety plan? Where's your secondary sub to go down and try to help? Where is any of this?
Yeah. No
Okay.
safety protocols.
Okay. Hey, could I put a cable on this thing? And I mean, what are you doing here? How come was there no emergency inflation device that you could have put onto this device? I'm just spitballing here because it seems like there was no thought to this.
Yeah. They were just flying by the seat of their pants here. Ed, this is a YouTube channel called DALLMYD. He's got 13.4 million subscribers. He went to this Titanic sub. He calls it a tourism expedition. It's really not a submarine. We know it's a submersible. So he was in this submersible a short time ago. I believe it was I think he put the date in here. This was mission 3 in 2023. So in this video, he shares his personal experience with Ocean Gate expeditions during mission number 3, 2023. Condolences, he says, out to all the victims and their families in this tragedy. He was on this vessel and it didn't go down. There was some type of technical issue. And I believe the CEO, Stockton Rush, explains it in this video. So I've linked this video in the description. I encourage you guys to all go over and watch it. It's 26 minutes. Obviously, I can't play it here, but they prepared him. He went through all of the safety checks and he shows it all in a 26-minute uploaded video. He just uploaded it 4 hours ago. I tried to reach out to him, but I couldn't get him like by email or anything. But basically, he said, if you share my video, just give credit. It's credit in the description. But this is at the 21-minute and 16-second mark. I'm going to play this for you because it actually shows you how they screw the front titanium piece together to the fuselage, or to
the hull,
the hull, and this is fascinating. I want you guys to see this because this is the actual vehicle that imploded. So let's play it.
It's getting real. Jeez. I'm a little nervous now, boys.
So he's sitting right in the front. This is the window that looks out to the front of the hull of this of the submersible. I'm going to let it play without saying anything. He's taking his shoes off, and that little black bucket to the right of his shoe here, where my cursor is, that's the shitter. That's where you go if you got to go to the bathroom. A little curtain gets pulled, and if you got to pee or poop, that's where it goes, into this little bucket right here.
All right. Shoes off.
All right. There you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, yo. Hey. All right, we're inside the submarine right now. Got the owner right back there, Stockton.
That's the
toilet. Like food bag, a couple.
Hopefully we don't have to use that. You ever had any water leaking in the front?
That's how that gets screwed shut. And it's, I think they said 7 points where they screw that together, Ed, around the whole. At least that's what I read in the description, that there were 7 of those kind of
10 meters. Yeah.
33 feet.
Are you ready for unlock, or are we unlocked? Is he saying we are unlocked, or are we ready for unlock?
Yes, say give him an okay. Give it in the dome.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Looks like
He's going to go pull the mechanical lock, and we're going to see how the pneumatic lock is doing. And there's a chance we'll pop off.
Still no pings from the top side. Hey, Stockton, what are you using to control the submarine? Daddy, you're locked in.
In the dome.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Looks like
He's going to go pull the mechanical lock, and we're going to see how the pneumatic lock is doing. And there's a chance we'll pop off.
Still no pings from the top side. Hey, Stockton, what are you using to control the submarine?
There it is, Ed.
Yep, a Logitech game controller.
Modified to control the movement of the submersible. I think that's all we're going to show, because basically the mission gets aborted due to some technical issues. And again, I'm not sure if it was because of weather or whatever. I mean, I thought that would give our audience a good view of the inside of that submersible, and it was claustrophobic. I mean, I could not do that. No, nonetheless, go down 12,500 feet.
When you're designing something like this, or a structure, it doesn't really matter. Redundancy. 1 equals none, and 2 equals 1. That's the math you have to be using when you're thinking about this. All right. I don't care if you're building a deck or you're designing a submersible like this. All right. There's safety issues involved in this. Okay. And people's lives are in danger or on the line here if you don't do the right thing.
Yeah. I have a piece from a safety expert, Ed, and we're getting ready to take a Q&A after this. So this is just a small little short piece. I want to play this because this man, this older gentleman, has a lot of really good things to say. Not good in the sense of what happened here, but he points out some real big issues. And I want you guys to take a listen to this.
Were able to locate a debris field Thursday and said the sub at some point imploded. It's not clear if their bodies can be recovered. Will Conan joins us now. He's president and CEO of Hydrospace Group, which specializes in engineering pressure vehicles for human capacity. Will, first, I'd like to get your reaction to Thursday's news.
Yeah, this has been a very sad day. We've been on pins and needles for days, and in hearing the Coast Guard announcement this morning, I've been doing this for a few hours now, trying to find a word that's just stronger than tragic. This is very tragic. This is the single biggest incident in our industry of submersibles since 1960. 60 years. This has never happened. We've had some fatalities, 4 fatalities in the 1970s through 3 different events, and here in a single event, we have this is more than all the rest combined. So it is very sad. They're all colleagues. I mean, this is a small community. The families are just devastating for the families. And but there is a world of engineers and professionals that gathers. I'm chairman of the Submersible Committee within the Marine Technology Society, it's been around since 1968. We gather, we discuss, we review designs, regulations. We are close to this. We have safe regulations And it is a battle between pushing the boundary of innovation and regulation. One is too slow, one is too fast, and finding the balance. It's tricky for any industry of finding that balance. And sadly, in the world of deep ocean, and this is very, very deep, even in our industry, this is very deep. There's only 10 vehicles that in the entire world that can go to this depth. And the
do you have a sense, Will, of what do you have a theory about what might have happened, and do you think there's any way to ever know?
Yeah, I think we will know. I mean, they will be picking up the pieces. We will see what one of the issues is seeing what the debris field is down there. We have some amazing technology on the seafloor with the remotely operated vehicles. I mean, these are very dexterous machines that can take photographs, video, and pick up some of the parts. But look, when something like that happens, when they call it a catastrophic implosion, that just means an underwater explosion, just inwards, and that means something gave way. And if they have the front and the back pieces, as those were made out of titanium, it appears that the central part just gave way.
You were involved in, and help me understand this, you were involved in writing a letter in 2018 that raised some safety concerns with OceanGate.
Let me just play
Were
this
those
part.
concerns addressed? How much should we understand this past history in evaluating the safety of this trip and whether any gates were blown that should have been paid attention to before launching?
You know, it's a very fair question, and that adds to the tragedy, right? Because since the Roman times, human beings have figured out how to go to the deep ocean. We know how to do this. We go to 20,000 feet all the time, reliably, safely. We have a solution. It is a process. In 2018, here, our committee meets every year. It's our 20th anniversary this year. We're going to have a big celebration. I'm afraid that's going to be significantly dampened here. But in 2018, after the 3 days, many people, senior experts from around the world, were coming and say, "Hey, Will, what do we do? I think this is serious. I mean, do they know what they're doing, and do they know the risks they are taking?" And we figured, what are we going to do? Do we stay silent? Do we say something? And I drafted the letter. I passed it around my colleagues, and more than 24 people signed the letter. And it basically said, look, we suggest what was concerning is the strategy of bypassing the existing safety check procedure. We call that classification. And
so he's just reiterating what you said here, Ed, and that was in 2018, and nothing happened. Fast forward to 2023, we have this tragedy. They just rolled the dice that whole time.
Now, he said something very important, and he said, you know, so the bow and the hull, on the bow and the stern were readily identifiable in the debris field, and he believes they were made of titanium. So what he said suggested to me that he believes that the body of the hull, where the passengers were in, were made of carbon fiber.
Yeah, which is what my spoiler is made of.
Right, and so the carbon fiber failed, and that's why you have the, you know, for all intents and purposes, the front and the tail made of titanium, readily identified in apparently intact on the floor of the ocean. You know, you know, oh my God, you know, what can I say?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a disaster, and you know, Mother Nature it's vicious down there. You know, you got your currents, you got your streams, you got all different kinds. You got cold; it's freezing cold, and you know,
there's not much difference between the depths of the ocean and space. Okay, and for those of us who are hazmat techs, and those of us who scuba dive, you know, your life is in the hands of the gear and the equipment that you're using. Okay. And oxygen, not oxygen, it's air. You don't you have air tanks, not oxygen tanks, right? And so your survivability in a hazardous materials situation where you have to have supplied air, or in underwater diving, scuba, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, you have to know how you breathe, how you use the air that's in your tank. You have to monitor the air that's in your tank. And there are other systems that don't require this at all. I mean, there are, our submarines don't rely on air like that. We have filtration systems, and there are other diving systems that you could wear, and other hazmat systems like the Draeger is a company that makes a rebreather that takes your exhalation, filters it, and allows it to turn back into oxygen, air again, for you, breathable air again that you could breathe. And you can also dive with it. The SEALs use this type of equipment because it doesn't let any air bubbles out of the system while they're underwater. And they also use it when they're doing halo jumps out of airplanes. Okay. Again, totally avoidable. Totally avoidable.
What do you think of this question on the screen? I think it's Trudy Lynn Ray from Facebook. She says, don't you think Stockton prepared what he thought was a safe submersible, since he was going to be in it? He was in it multiple dives down there. But what's in his mind and what he thinks is safe is debatable. Right, Ed? I mean,
he gave several interviews, and
thank you for that question, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, he gave several interviews, and he talked about, some of the things that he said made me question his safety, his approach to safety.
Yeah. And here's on the Titanic expedition dive. This is the actual official YouTube channel for OceanGate Expeditions. And they're promoting, I shut the sound off as we were talking, but they're promoting the people who are backing them, NASA, Boeing. And we heard in that news report that was only 7 hours ago that they reached out to Boeing and said that they were not involved in this. And this is their Titanic Expedition Dive Experience 2023. They uploaded this 2 months ago on their YouTube channel. I want to just hear what they say here, just for shits and giggles, to see if there's this is like a professionally produced video.
Partnered with aerospace experts at the University of Washington, NASA, and Boeing on the design of our hull.
Every time you see, there's so many things.
Right? Didn't we just listen to that? That was 7 hours ago, a news report. I mean, again, Ed, I know but these news agencies reach out to these places, and the responses from Boeing were no. I don't know. So,
yeah.
Interesting. So this was just uploaded 2 months ago. I'll link their YouTube channel in the description. These are all parts of the team that they're showing. This to me was obviously after the fact of what happened. I would have been interested in seeing this before they went down there, but now I'm looking at it afterwards. So I'm really paying attention to all the things that they're saying. And this was like a sales pitch to me, Ed. I don't know if you watch this, but I'm going to link this in the description so everyone can go and watch it. We don't have enough time to play it here. But yeah, Great Laker, California says false advertising. I don't know, again, this is, people who are trying to sell something, this is a pitch,
And that's something that you take away for life.
Master chef. I mean, so they have people who, and in that video that I played of that kid inside the submersible, he talks earlier in his 26-minute video about how they feed you to get you prepared for going down for 12 hours. So it was a whole process. So, but yeah, definitely a sales pitch. Robbie from Australia is chiming in, and listen, we all try to find something positive out of this, but I don't think there is anything that we could come out with that's positive about this. Again, all the warning signs were ignored. Deborah Barron says it well. he ignored the warnings. I maybe in the name of money, I don't know. He's a millionaire himself, so I don't know. Stockton Rush. We don't know. We're not inside the mind of him, but yeah, Ed, very troubling. In all different fashions here. You see anything in the chat? Because I want to get to some of the chat questions.
I'll go for it.
Okay. So if you have any questions, hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon, just put it in the chat and we'll try to answer as many of these questions as possible. I'm just going to pull up a picture here.
Here, I got one. Hold on. What lessons can be learned? Don't let your ego push you to this extreme where you put money before lives.
Very good. And the consequences are innocent paying customers' lives, right? And here are your victims, including Stockton Rush, right up on the screen here, including a 19-year-old Dawood's son.
Joey Brooklyn writes, do you think there would be an investigation and could there be criminal charges? There should definitely be an investigation. Could there be criminal charges? I don't know who would have the jurisdiction. The World Court, The Hague. I don't know. They're in international waters, right?
Right. Yes.
So I don't know who would handle that if there is. Are there going to be lawsuits? Yeah. The waiver is not worth the paper and the ink that it's written with. Okay. There are always going to be lawsuits.
Absolutely. Because they're going to show that there was, negligence on the half of Ocean Gate and its operators, and nobody's going to be exempt from these civil lawsuits. And you'll hear tonight later on Police Off the Cuff, Melanie Little, the civil attorney and experienced trial lawyer. She'll probably talk about that on Bill's show. You guys are going to be directed over to that show after this one is over. And I'm going to have her come back on and we'll talk about that because, again, Ed, the waivers are not worth the paper it's signed on if there is reckless, if they operated this dive in a reckless fashion.
Yes, with reckless disregard, as we say.
Yes.
Okay, and you're talking about millionaires and billionaires. They have the money to pay for this kind of ride. They have great lawyers, okay, and they have a lot of money, okay, and their families, are hurting right now. But I know there's going to be negligence.
Yeah. Jennifer
Jennifer writes, how was the window 9 inches, but the walls 5 inches? Is that another issue with fitting a round peg into a square cylindrical hole that set up the disaster? Yeah, it seems like, they use some kind of coupling devices. We see this a lot in plumbing, right? Anybody who's ever done any plumbing, you know that there are certain plumbing pipes and things that we use to attach 2 different diameter items together to make something like this occur. But could it have been a problem? Yeah, it has to be tested. Yeah, I mean, how was that seal and how was that connection made? So yeah, all the engineering of this submersible has to be looked at. All the fittings, all the connections. How were they connected? Were they tack welded? Were they bolted? Were they bolted by machine? Were they bolted by hand? Because it seems like in that one footage that they were manually bolting the closure together, not using a machine. Yeah. So
it's insane.
Was a torque wrench involved? Did they have the right torquage on the bolts? I mean, there are so many different things here that just scare the bejeebers out of me. I mean, look, how they entered. They entered in the front of the vessel, and then they bolted the front of the vessel together once they were inside. Wow. I mean,
yeah. Just a whole, and there's probably a ton of things that we don't even know about that went on behind the scenes with, multiple missions where the comms went down for multiple hours. Picture being down at those depths and not having communication for 2 hours. How much panic?
Comms don't go down, you go up. That's end of story. You lose comms, you go back up. Okay, and where's the redundancies in the comms? Okay, how many redundant communication systems were on board this vessel?
Right, exactly. Here's a good one from Linda Tevis. She says, hashtag DutyRon. Was there a weight limit on the submersible? I would guarantee you, because I saw the young gentleman that I played. He's got 13.4 million subscribers. He got weighed in the beginning of that video. So I encourage you guys to go and watch that full 26-minute documentary that he uploaded. It's linked in the description, and it showed him getting weighed on a scale. So yes, I'm sure that there was a weight limit, and there's talk of people having to be at certain points in the hull of that
to maintain the center of gravity. I mean, it's the same in airplanes, folks. You may notice, you may not know this when you're taking a commercial flight, but the weight of the plane and its passengers, all that has to be calculated to understand. The flight characteristics can change dramatically if you don't understand the weight and you don't have it positioned in the correct locations inside of these vehicles.
Yeah. And do you think, Ed, that played a part in the carbon fiber hull? Was weight perhaps they trying to maximize the amount of weight that they could put in there as opposed
yes, carbon fiber is light compared to titanium and so forth. But planes use beryllium and aluminum and things like that. Ships use steel and then carbon and they use all kinds of new metals. I just can't see carbon fiber. Because you think about vehicles shells are being used. Carbon fiber is being used in vehicle shells and things of that nature. Okay, right. And look how the carbon fiber reacts when it gets into an accident. Okay, so I can't see how carbon fiber can have the tensile strength to withstand the pressures that are being put on it as it's going deeper and deeper into the ocean. I just don't understand that.
Yeah. Hey, I have a clip of someone who went on a mission in 2022. His name, I just want to put it out there for the audience. Colin Taylor, a member of the 2022 Ocean Gate dive, describes the trip and trained in a training that those going to visit the Titanic wreck received. I think this might be worth a listen. Ed, you see something else in the chat?
Oh, no, I'm just looking. Many people are agreeing with what we're saying, and others are. I saw a few conspiracy things I didn't particularly care for.
Yeah, well, they should just be probably removed, especially if they're disrespectful. I don't like to, listen. These families are still in mourning, and we're trying to just go over what happened here. But at the end of the day, everyone's going to have. Listen, I watched WFLA now. JB did a couple of lives. He was live for 11 hours, I think, or 7 hours, and the chat was so toxic. It was really despicable, some of the things that I was seeing people saying. But let's listen. This is he went on an expedition with his son. So let's see.
Really put together a terrific program to get down to the Titanic. It's truly a fantastic dive. And it's you're really pushing to the limits of.
He's being positive about this, and I thought it was interesting. But I just want to hear a little bit of what this guy says, and I'll link it in the description so you guys can watch it all.
What people are capable of doing. It's about 2.5 miles down, almost 4 kilometers. It takes about 2.5 hours to get to it. We spent 4 or 5 hours at the wreck itself, and then about 2.5 hours to get back up. And there's procedures before and after that are part of the dive as well. But really, just a remarkable trip. And when the news sort of came out this morning, I was candidly shocked to hear, and obviously very concerned for the people involved.
Right, and Colin, talk to us a little bit about that shock, because when it comes to going on a mission like this, what are the risks involved and what kind of training do you receive?
It's obviously not without risk. As I said, you're really pushing, to the very limits of human capabilities, what can be done. The pressures, and that one experiences down there are truly, at the edge of what humans and human technology is capable of managing. So there are risks. Now, that said, you are with some of the best people in the world, best engineers, technicians, and they are incredibly safety conscious. They're very, very careful about managing risks. They are very risk averse. And so our experience on it, my son and I, and we'd done quite a bit of due diligence, prior to all of this. A friend of mine is an engineer on a nuclear sub and knew these people well and spoke very highly of them. And our own experience while we were on board for the week was incredible. And they really, the focus on safety, on managing the risks is, first and foremost in everything they do. So again, hearing about what happened today was just a terrible, terrible shock.
I can imagine, Colin, this being something.
All right, so you didn't really say too much other than praise them. So he must have had a positive experience with his dive, or who knows? But I listen to conflicting reports. People very critical on a professional level, and folks like this who paid $1 million to go down with his son, and he's here and alive to talk about it. And he didn't have anything negative to say, at least in the little piece. That was 8 minutes. I couldn't play the whole thing. But what's your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, listen, many adventurers take risk. Okay. And then there are the adrenaline junkies that love to take risks and do this stuff all the time. Now, carbon fiber, to get back to carbon fiber. Now, carbon fiber is used in a lot of different things. Even surfboards now come in carbon fiber, as well as like the shaft on my drivers and my golf clubs. Right. And I visited a website that was designing and building carbon fiber shafts for golf clubs. And the engineering behind that was amazing. And the tests that they ran on this and the tensile strength that these carbon fiber shafts had were phenomenal. But these types of things, this type of building is not something that should be undertaken by enthusiasts or amateurs, right? You need to really employ a professional team of engineers, marine engineers, or naval architects that do this work and are licensed to do this work to ensure that you are meeting the high standards that are required to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, like people are saying in the chat, Ed, and you even agree with it. All the money in the world can't buy your life and can't buy your safety. Some people feel like, oh, well, here, this guy talked about, oh, we talked to a nuclear sub engineer or whatever, and he talked highly about them. That's why you go and get second and third opinions. You do it when you go to doctors. You do it when you, employing contractors, and you get opinion. I really feel like if you were to get eyes on this submersible, how could it not turn you off? It turns. I mean, I know we're looking at this after the fact, but even if this didn't happen, I would look at this and go, I'm not. Oh no, there's no freaking way. I would be like,
oh hell no!
I'm not going down there in that thing.
There was a question about carbon fiber in airplanes. Yes, on small light aircraft, carbon fiber has been used on planes like that, and in some speedboats, in racing boats, because of its lightweight and its strength capabilities. But you're like in a speedboat, you're talking above water, but still, you're traveling, some 100 miles an hour, 100 knots an hour on heavy seas that, and the boats come crashing down. So, we've seen some catastrophic failures of the carbon fiber in the hulls of those types of racing boats. And we've also seen carbon fiber used in experimental airplanes. And just think about those people, that build their own helicopters and airplanes. In fact, John Denver, right? He died in an experimental carbon fiber airplane that he built.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And well, I mean, his death is totally unrelated to this because he had a fuel issue because he shut off the fuel and couldn't figure out what he did wrong.
Right.
But
yeah. Hey, H. Cook, I feel that the CEO wasn't open to other opinions. And I'm going to go back to my notes here. I got my little cheat sheet. 2018, the CEO fired David Lockridge because he brought up concerns of safety. David Lockridge talked about parts and windows not certified, certified. The windows were only certified for 4,000 feet of depth. So there was many safety standards that he cited in a 2018 lawsuit. He filed a lawsuit after he was fired. So your point, H. Cook, thank you for that, is probably very valid. This is a man who felt that he knew what he was doing and he was not open to people challenging. Ed, think about how many times you get challenged on crime scene and DNA and forensics from people all over the place with different levels of knowledge, everything from the novice to, folks that are, just
in my careers, in all of my careers, I've always sought peer review. Okay. If you're going to do something, it takes less time to explain why you did it right than why you did it wrong. So there's only way to do something. There's only one way to do something, and that's to do it right from the get-go. Follow the standards that are put in place. Follow the codes. You can't just do this stuff on the cheap. Okay, you got to get the professionals that know what they're doing, that are licensed and registered to do this, to do it. Okay, there's no cutting corners with this. You're putting people's lives in danger.
I wholeheartedly agree. Amber, ATS News, she said, yeah, I heard he turned down a retired naval expert. And, maybe it would have cost him a lot of money to listen to some of these experts and their safety concerns. But, again, people who do make a lot of money or have a lot of money become greedy and they just want to make more profit. And I'm not saying that this is the case here. I mean, this guy is no longer with us to even answer for himself, but I'm sure, Amber, and thank you for that question. I'm sure that many people who are surrounded by Stockton Rush over the time can speak about this, and we may hear about it. So you never know. Here's one for Ed, Janice Peace.
How do you feel about rides at amusement parks? It's the same thing. They have to be inspected. Okay, when one of these road carnivals show up at your town and pop up, for a week, and they come back every year, they have to meet the requirements of the jurisdictions that they find. And building department engineers come out and inspect these rides. They're supposed to be inspected, all right, because people can get hurt, as we've seen when they're not inspected. How many catastrophic failures on roller coasters or other amusement top rides where kids have lost their lives, and not just kids, but adults as well.
Yeah. Okay. People hanging upside down on rides or falling out of rides or rides coming off of their tracks and so forth. Anytime I see these pop-up carnivals where people pull up with their trailers and they set up these rides and stuff, I'll watch, but I ain't going on them. You know what I mean? So it's only as good as who's been inspecting it and how it was constructed. A lot of people in the chat just going crazy. We're at an hour and 30 minutes. I want to wrap it up, and I want to just say, listen, this is about these victims here, and I'm putting I'm putting their faces and their names up. Some of the names are difficult to pronounce, and I don't want to botch them. So they're here up on the screen. We send, prayers and strength to their families. There's people who are now mourning and are so devastated by this loss. So go ahead.
Yes. My prayers, as I said in the beginning, our prayers go out to them and their families, for all those that were lost in this tragic, avoidable incident. You know, you hear from time to time after these major tragedy incidents, you know, we got to do something. We got to do something so this never happens again. This never happens again. Unfortunately, in a lot of the situations where people are saying that, it's just not reasonable to think that, you know, certain incidents are never going to happen again.
I agree.
Well, this is avoidable. This has to be said, never happen again. Okay. You know, regulation, inspections, certifications. Okay. You know, when you build a house, right, you got to go to the building department and have plans, and then you got to get inspected. And then every step of the construction is inspected.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, these cruise lines that you go on, people go on. Do you think these boats are just willy-nilly put together in a shipyard somewhere, and there's no inspections, and there's no seaworthy trials, and there's nothing that licensed them to go out and take on passengers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I
do
mean,
drills every time I go out on a
and
cruise.
the airplanes you go on and fly, you know, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Hey, guys and girls, if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, this guy right over here, please consider subscribing. You know, here you're going to get good, solid information. You're going to get an education. You're going to also get the facts. We don't really go with, you know, rumors and innuendos, and we won't take you down rabbit holes. I think that's maybe why, you know, most of our subscriber base comes back time and time again, because when you're talking with myself or Ed Wallace or any of the guests that we bring on, we're bringing you the facts, and that's what we do here. So if you're not yet subscribed, consider hitting the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and follow us on all things social media. One word, DutyRon. I begged Ed to get onto some of these social medias, and he said to me,
Oh, hell no.
not quite in that voice, but he was just like, you can catch me on LinkedIn, but that's about it. That's my professional platform, and that's what Ed does. But he does make appearances on TikTok with me, unbeknownst to him. There he goes. He's rolling his eyes. It reminds me of my wife when he does that, but he does give me a punch when he sees me.
I do not support the CPP.
Okay, fair enough. Everybody's going to go over now from here to Police Off the Cuff. They just started their live a minute ago. So we're going to all go over there. When you go over to Police Off the Cuff, make sure you put in the chat hashtag DutyRon and Ed Wallace raid, hashtag DutyRon or hashtag Ed or both of us, and then raid, RAID. Let them know you came from here, and we will see you again soon. Ed, are you traveling outside the country anytime soon? Can you please say no to that?
I cannot confirm or deny that such a travel is in the near future.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That's my boy Cameron. Okay, but I'm sorry, that's not Cameron. That's Ferris. I'm sorry. I botched my 80s. Yes, but I love Ferris. He's Cameron's boy. But anyhow, having said that,
what's your problem?
Spicoli.
Jeff.
All right.
So let's wrap it up. What do you got to say to the audience? So listen, we did go from A to Z on this thing, and we gave you our professional thoughts and opinions on this. I know, Ed, you got something to say to the guys and girls before we sign off?
You mean you're gonna let me say it? Like the last show, you cut me right off because I was about to say it.
I'm feeling misty tonight.
Okay. Okay. So you know what, folks? Always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six. And don't get on submarines made by these types of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond, on behalf of Ed Wallace and Crime Time with DutyRon, we send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to each one of these families. We're sending them strength and prayers all the way from New York, and we'll continue to keep them in our prayers. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for watching. Stand by for a service announcement, a public service announcement from the cop team. That's Kara, Oscar, Popeye.
Hey, you're going to have to put them in that order because the way you have it now, it doesn't spell cop.
I understand that. They all make an appearance. Ed, you're so technical. I can't stand it. I love you, though, brother. All right. Good night from Ed Wallace and Crime Time with DutyRon. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.